launching the national games, and wow, what a program that was. The vibrancy and energy in that room could light up a whole city possibly. And even today morning, I was seeing that a village near Ahmedabad was getting connected to 5G, and the potential and enthusiasm that is reflected in today's launch of 5G in India is just great and very, very empowering for the country. We are all living in very challenging times, very volatile times, turbulent times. Within that, we are somewhat an island of stability. We continue to post good growth, hoping to cross 7% this year. On inflation front, for a country which was very used to nearly double-digit inflation for many, many years, since the last 8 years, we've been able to truly moderate inflation. And what happens is, after a certain period of time, people forget the bad old days and you get used to the new normal. So now, when I think the last 7-8 years CAGR on inflation would be about 4% or 4.5%. तो एक आदत सी पड़ गई है कि अब महंगाई ज्यादा नहीं होती है, उसमें 7% भी बहुत ज्यादा लगता है. You know, you feel 7% inflation and you suddenly see a lot of talk about things becoming expensive. But I think by and large, it's a collective effort of all of us, in government and out of government, industry, equally responsible. The Reserve Bank of India as a regulator doing a fabulous job. Everybody is collectively working to make sure that India continues to grow. We meet our immediate target of becoming the fifth $5 trillion economy. We are now already the fifth largest economy in the world. And the way our competitor in position 6 is going, I think we are there to stay. But most importantly, I think the mindset of the nation is changing. We are a bold nation that wants to engage with the world from a position of strength. We are self-confident in our abilities. We have the world's finest talent pool. All of you children and our teachers make us all proud of your achievements. In terms of decisive leadership, the world looks up to India. It's a massive effort to bring structural and transformative changes, both to India's economy, India's talent, and India's efforts to take prosperity to 1.3 billion people. I think this collective effort with a spirit of duty, as articulated by the Prime Minister on 15th August, Kartavya Bhavna, coupled with, of course, Madam, the Nari Shakti, more and more women coming into the workforce, contributing to GDP and growth. I think India is going to, if I may use a colloquial word relevant to your students, something which my Commerce Secretary used, I think, 2-3 days back, India will continue to rock the world. Thank you.
Thank you for those opening remarks, Mr. Goyal. Later on, of course, I would like to, in some way, maybe even confront you on your statement about female labor force participation, because the recent numbers are not looking very promising. So we can come to that a little later. But to pick up on some of the things that you mentioned, that we are now already world's fifth largest economy, moving steadily towards the $5 trillion GDP goal. Which sectors would you say have played a role, and as well as what sectors will remain sort of the focal point as we continue to move towards this?
Very clearly, services is a sector which has driven growth of most of the developed countries. India is also edging its way up. We are more than 50% of our GDP from services now, which means that consumption patterns are changing. Consumers are becoming a demand driver of the economy and GDP. We are also, thanks to our talent pool, able to contribute in a big way through services to our exports and international engagements. We did a 23% growth last year in services, actually 25% growth last year in services. From 197, I think we went to $254 billion. My own sense is that for the first time, I see this level of enthusiasm in our services sector, that a 20% CAGR over the next 8 years is not difficult to imagine, and which takes us to $1 trillion coming out of services exports by 2030. Goods have also done well. Last year we did $420 billion. We are hoping to see about 10-11% growth this year. And if we sustain about 10 to 12% growth every year on a CAGR basis, by 2030, we'll also have $1 trillion of merchandise exports. So services as a focal point, and then at a macro level, exports finally coming home to contribute in a big way to our GDP is the first sure sign of India wanting to get into the club of developed nations. Within services, whether it's telecom, and we saw the rollout of 5G's program today, it was truly scintillating and very big confidence booster. Very few countries in the world have even fully got 4G in place. I mean, I would go to the extent of saying the world's richest country, most parts of that country, when you are traveling, you don't get 4G connectivity as well as you get it in India, even in our remote parts. Our IT sector is doing phenomenal work. Our young, bright engineers are making us proud. Media, entertainment, transport and logistics, financial services, our startups, whether it's fintech, edtech, health tech, edutech, all of them, with over 110 unicorns today. I mean, the whole country is living in a different mode, a mode to move forward quickly. I'm delighted to share with you that one bright spot in the last few years has been agriculture, which has, after many years, consistently shown growth. And by and large, the farmers also, and I interact very often with them in different forum, political or my ministerial work, they are a far more satisfied lot than they were a few years ago. And we've done the things quite differently. Take sugar farmers, for example. They're perpetually in debt, perpetually delayed payments to the farmers, and the sugar industry was always in the central government or state governments pleading for assistance. Our focus on ethanol, which has made 10% ethanol blending possible in petrol, another 3 years will be 20%, which means nearly 100,000 crores, 1 lakh crore additional income of our sugar ecosystem, which will strengthen it. And today, sugar industry, even after paying a high FRP or a remunerative price to the farmers, has paid all its dues. They are a big exporter and foreign exchange earner. They contribute to ethanol, and they're by and large all getting back into good financial shape. So like that, each sector is being focused for its long-term growth and development. Manufacturing, our PLI schemes have been very well received. We are looking at creating champion sectors where we have the competitive or comparative advantage. I'm truly going by Michael Porter's theory or Ricardo's theory that let's make sure that if we are not competent or competitive in certain industry, it's better to import than struggle to make industries survive on clutches. The PLI scheme can give you a little bit of a kickstart, but ultimately industry will have to survive on its own strength. I think a couple of days back, I was sharing with the services industry my own outlook of business. We have to get out of the mindset of subsidies and become a self-reliant and a resilient business ecosystem, not dependent on government, but independently of government, looking at success stories. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. There's so much food for thought in all the comments that you just made. Picking up on some of them, here at the Institute itself, one of the big changes that we are seeing among our students, our graduates, is the move towards more up and coming sector startups, innovation in all kinds of sectors, including agriculture. So what would you have to say about the kind of support that is being offered for for industry to be more innovative, for them to be able to take more risks? What kind of say support is being offered for all kinds of sectors here, including, as I mentioned, agriculture, which you also raised?
Madam, undoubtedly our young boys and girls make us proud with their out-of-the-box ideas. The spirit of inquiry is finally set into our youngsters. And I keep engaging with startups as a part of my duty. And every single time I'm amazed at the brilliance and the simplicity in their innovations. It's not always some fancy equipment or something. It's some simple, down-to-earth idea. I often share this example of these young kids, and I think they must be not from Pune, but some outskirt of Pune or a village near Pune. From the overall demeanor, I didn't feel that they were city-bred, rich family kids. I was leaving for a convocation ceremony at one of the universities outside Pune. I failed to remember the name, and at the hotel steps, they caught me and wanted to present their startup idea. I spent some time with them, though I was getting late. And it was a brilliant thought. You know the number of accidents that happen because of the high beam being blown on the highway? And somehow, forget truck drivers and bus drivers, you and I don't bother to put the beam down, on the highway. It's not in our culture. We believe the full light will save us from an accident. We don't realize it will cause 10 other people a possible accident. So they came with a simple solution that just put in a little chip in there. So after 2 or 3 minutes, it will throw in an alarm. I felt there was an added advantage. They had not told me that the guy will remain awake at night and give him a signal that you got to put down your beam. And another 3 minutes later, if he doesn't do it, it will automatically bring it to no beam. It's elementary. But I don't know, for so many years, you didn't think of it, I didn't think of it, none of the others thought of it. So these elementary out-of-the-box ideas is probably what will define India in the years to come. What is innovation? It's problem solving. You have to recognize the problem and then find a smart, innovative, cost-effective, easy to implement solution. And no wonder India has moved from 81st rank to 41st in the Global Innovation Index, which was announced, I think, just barely 2 days back. And truly a matter of pride that now government, academia, our research organizations, industry, all have started recognizing the value of innovation. Just like Kennedy had said, the highways made America once upon a time. Today's America, today's Europe, and gradually our northern neighbor, they are what they are because of the innovation that they have done or what they continue to do. And I'm happy that India is also getting into that mindset of innovation. I believe you yourself are running a program on sustainability and you have a center for innovation in IIM Ahmedabad,
yes.
if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, so we have CII.
I'd love to come and visit that one of these days.
Absolutely, more than welcome. Anytime you want to come here. So we do have CII, which is backed by Department of Science and Technology. So we take pride in that. So another important comment that you made was about the production-linked incentive scheme, which for the longest time, manufacturing was not something on which there was an important focus in terms of policy reform, and then the PLI has come in. And another important statement that you made is that we, in the end, want to create these champion sectors. We don't want industry to depend on subsidies to free them from the crutches that they have been depending on. So wanted to hear a little more about, so when you bring about a reform of this kind, there are obviously trade-offs that are being made. So there have been criticisms around, the budget is not sufficient. The demand for a scheme like that is probably much more than what the budget support that is being offered is. There is a sunset clause. Should there be a sunset clause? No sunset clause? You're directly getting into incentivizing certain kinds of manufacturing. What's going to happen to the lower end folks in these industries? What about other fundamental reforms around land, labor, logistics, law, everything? So a lot of criticisms are being thrown at any time we come up with a reform. So wanted to hear again your thoughts on PLI and broadly on the challenges of coming up with reforms in this space around manufacturing.
Well, there will always be challenges in life. That's what entrepreneurship is all about. If there were no challenges, then we might as well everybody take a government job. And of course, there's a lot of challenges in a government job also, by the way. But I think Indian manufacturing today has come to stay. It's becoming very focused on quality, very focused on scale, so that we can enjoy the fruits of economies of scale. And our idea behind PLI is to promote those sectors where we can clearly see a competitive edge, as I said. We had an industry-led initiative called SCALE, a SCALE committee. It was a steering committee for advancement of localization for exports and employment generation. Right? It was headed by Dr. Pawan Goenka, former CEO of Mahindra's, now chairman of InSpace, I think, the government initiative to encourage private sector to get into space technology. Today, I received a message from Pawan. I think the Prime Minister made an announcement, the Health Minister made an announcement that we should aim for a $50 billion medical devices industry. Now, we are picking up ideas wherever we can, wherever we see the potential. So I'll read out the message to tell you how this government thinks and works. This committee, by the way, is industry-led, supported by industry associations. We in government are facilitators. We don't take any of the decisions. They do the drill down and deep dive study of sectors and advise us where support is required, what period, what kind of support, what's the cost disadvantage currently, and how over a period of time that can be neutralized. So today it sends me a message at 2 o'clock, 2 hours back. Piyush ji, Honorable Health Minister, has made a statement about medical devices industry reaching $50 billion. I know there is tremendous scope in this sector. Scale Committee can help in this regard. If you deem appropriate, you may talk to Mandavia from your state. Scale Committee can then sit with his officers and chalk out a plan and then present to the two of you. Pawan Goenka. That's how Mr. Modi's government works. The industry is a demandeur rather than we in government forcing something down their throat. And these sectors have been well chosen where we have possibility to make champion sectors. Get large scale of operation. And some of this criticism is quite baseless. I mean, there's no limitation of budget. In fact, last night, my industry secretary told me 7 new PLI schemes, which are not a part of the original announcement. They have just approved 7 more. We have a group of secretaries. It's all professionally done. Now, this became a feedback. There'll be a whole rollout of a study. And it'll go on till it goes to some fruition, comes to some roti pak jati hai, go through Niti Aayog, go to committee or secretary. It'll take some effort and all. Thought goes behind it. But once it's decided, then it goes like a cheetah. With the speed of a cheetah. Once the action has to be taken, then there'll be no holding back. I think your video is frozen there. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So what I'm just trying to say is that there's no shortage of funds. And I can also share with you that the small industry is the largest beneficiary, the MSMEs of these schemes. Because as one large industry comes in, it brings with that a whole ecosystem of thousands of other suppliers and smaller manufacturers or service providers. In fact, the mainstay of India is the MSMEs. But the mainstay of MSMEs is large industry, which aggregates what our MSMEs are doing and in a way gives them greater opportunity. So I can assure you the scheme has come to stay. Every one of them is properly assessed in partnership with industry, and PLI certainly needs to have a sunset clause. I just said I need industry to be standing on its own legs. This is only a kickstart mechanism, an initial boost. Can be a permanent support system.
Absolutely. Moving on to other important roles that you have played, which is in particular when you were in the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. What do you see to be the future of energy mix, energy security for India? What exactly is being done in terms of balancing energy security as well as making sure that we are meeting our sustainability goals?
Well, incidentally, I don't know if you're aware, India is amongst the only countries in the world which not only is meeting what it committed at Paris 2015, but is exceeding in terms of their actions. So we had committed 175 gigawatt of clean energy. We are now up the ante to make it 500 gigawatt. We are well on track towards 500. Our energy mix, we expect to be predominantly or at least 50% renewable by 2030 in terms of actual energy. In terms of installed capacity, it will probably be 70-80%. Well on track to do that. We had promised to make a 1 billion ton carbon sink. Well on track with the amount of effort on forestation and afforestation and rejuvenation of forests that's going on. Our industry is working actively on newer technologies like green hydrogen so that this solar power or renewable energy can be more useful and hydrogen can become the source for round-the-clock power. Otherwise, with the intermittent nature of renewable energy, it cannot be a solution by itself. Our grids will collapse beyond a stage. We are looking at what Prime Minister in Gujarat, when he was Chief Minister, and I'm talking of way back in 2007-8. I can call my colleague, he'll tell me the year when he said it. Prime Minister, in one of his musings, not that he had planned it or some expert scientists had come and told him. One of his musings, he said, the sun shines 24 hours a day, somewhere or the other. What if we were to make the world one grid? Just the sun gives enough energy to power the whole world's requirement. And the grid would transmit it wherever the sun is generated and transmit it wherever it was required. So you would have 24 hours clean energy, powered by the sun. Imagine what a fantastic idea. He was just way ahead of his times. 14 years ago, he thought of this. Now the world is waking up to that reality. So I've talked to my Saudi counterpart. They are very excited about an undersea cable between India and Saudi. They are 2.5 hours ahead. So we can meet their peak load requirement. They can meet our peak load requirement. UAE, 1.5 hour behind, both are behind. So we can exchange power. So if we create a grid, power will flow from country to country. We are talking to Singapore. We already had a discussion with Singapore. Singapore here, Saudi Arabia, we are already in dialogue. Singapore has a dialogue with Australia. It's like a relay race. And can you imagine, Saudi Arabia energy minister promised me he'll talk to some Central European and Southern European countries. देखते ही देखते पता नहीं चलेगा कब ये प्रधानमंत्री का एक प्रकार से I would just say it's something very unique to him that he comes up with some of these thoughts way ahead of its time. But after many years, people say, oh God, this is possible, we can do it. So it's somewhat like what we used to see in Star Trek once upon a time, or maybe one of those flying machines before the aeroplane became a reality, the old movies that we used to see. I think, and then today you see a lot of that happening in front of your eyes. You see asteroids being blown up in space to test for any future emergency or exigency. I think we are very committed because love and respect for the nature is very intrinsic in every Indian. And this government, I assure you, is totally committed. We are inviting participation of academia and industry very actively in our efforts to make India and in fact the whole planet a better place to live in. And I must say that Prime Minister believes very strongly in intergenerational equity. So he does believe that we do not have a right to take away the natural resources of the world and leave behind for our future generations a problem.
Now, something which intersects the various roles and the ministries to which you have contributed. So we have currently so many factors are being played out at the global level, which is affecting our economy, which is affecting our energy security. So on one hand, you have Russia, Ukraine, and another you have China and what is happening to the Belt and Road Initiative. So in the backdrop of all of these happenings, where do you see India coming in and taking up a very important role?
I'll begin by reminding you of one sentence that Prime Minister said, "Yahi samay hai, sahi samay hai." Believe me, madam, India's time has come. The world is looking up to us. And as a part of my role and government duty, I engage with leaders from across the world, both from industry, universities, and government. They are looking up to India. They want to expand engagement with India. We are the last man standing, if I can use that phrase, in terms of hope to drive global growth and global economy. The world looks at us with great admiration. I sometimes worry that our mindset is not willing to accept how the world looks at us. We are still drawn into a shell. We are not yet bold and confident enough. And I mean, 1.3 billion people. That let's go for the kill. Let's go for it. It is our time. It is our opportunity of a lifetime. And with a nation of 1 billion people aspiring for a better quality of life, we provide the world's biggest business opportunity, market opportunity, consumer demand. We have the best talent pool. No other country has a talent pool comparable to our Indian young boys and girls. The demographic dividend is totally in our favor. And next 30 years are ours to seize. We are at 2.1 that fertility rate or population rate. I think for the next 30 years, we will continue to have a large part of our population in the working age group. We are today the voice of least developed countries and developing nations. Look at any global fora. Everybody is looking up to India to lead their concerns, take care of their concerns. At the WTO, India was completely in command of the outcomes. And we were able to protect the interests of less privileged nations, the poorer nations, the low-income nations, and of course, developing nations like ours. And it's widely acknowledged across the world that but for India, Paris would not have come out with any agreement. It was Prime Minister Modi leading from the front, bringing together the world's leaders, developing and less developed countries on the same page, because of which Paris could come out with a historic agreement. At the WTO, we had extensive sessions with Prime Minister Modi, and he gave us such clear articulation of his thoughts that we were absolutely sure what we wanted out of WTO and what we were saying there. And I would occasionally call up Prime Minister to seek his guidance. And I tell you, he enthuses you and gives you confidence that you are representing 1 billion people. Keep that back of your mind 24/7. Every word, every action represents 1 billion people here. And that's what got India the recognition I think every Indian richly deserves. His message, this is not an era of war, is now the buzzword across the world. His message on 15th August that today India is ripe for growth, for prosperity, to become a developed nation in the next 25 years of Amrit Kal. And we will all work towards this with a spirit of duty. Kartavya bhavna se hum kare isko. I think all of these are really being appreciated world over. Our own management of COVID and our image as a trusted partner. During COVID also, India did not let down anybody. We were the first responder to the crisis, be it vaccines, medicines, giving healthcare professionals to other countries. We ensured work from home and other ways by which none of the international commitments we ever let down anybody. So in every respect, it's a sweet spot we are in. I hope collectively all of us can work to make it even sweeter and take the fruits of this wonderful opportunity so that the last man at the bottom of the pyramid, who's the focus of this government's efforts, every single child born in this country has a good quality of life.
Well, very encouraging words there. I'm hoping all the students and youngsters who are listening to this conversation have something to take away from that. In the beginning, I said I will confront you on the female labor force participation numbers. So, what do you have to say about the latest numbers that have come out, particularly whether the country is walking the talk when it comes to being
Sorry.
On the female labor force participation rate data that has recently been released, which shows quite a significant dip overall on the average female labor force participation. So wanted to again hear from you how the country plans to walk the talk when it comes to making sure it's supporting half the country.
Madam, clearly the world is going through challenging times. COVID was particularly a time where every country faced problems, including India. But if you look back, whether it was his tenure as Chief Minister of Gujarat or now Prime Minister for 8 years, 20 years, Prime Minister has relentlessly focused on our girl child. And he believes that every girl child who's got a quality education will contribute to the economy, will add to the economy, and will add to prosperity for the family. Of course, there are many social advantages of that. I'm not going into all of it. I'm trying to keep this focus on the economy. But whether it's the Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao program, whether it's the greater degree of respect for our working women, increased maternity leave, now free healthcare for the less privileged sections of society, ensuring that women don't take in so much of fumes through wood or coal cooking gas to every family in the home. Even electricity. Electricity, I don't know whether IIM has done any studies, but is a force multiplier in gender equality also, in prosperity of families, and possibly also in helping the social equilibrium in society. So families who would spend half their life in darkness except the day hours, and even within that in the home, a dark atmosphere and a dingy atmosphere, used to have a lot of serious problems. Now with the LED bulbs costing hardly anything and consuming hardly any electricity, certainly lighting is not a problem anywhere in the country. And every home in the country getting electricity 24/7 has become a reality. Unless the state government decides to mess it up by bad management of their electricity department or utilities, that's a different story. But otherwise, Prime Minister Modi has made sure the whole country gets 24/7 power. Sufficient power in the system, an interconnected grid, which even the US does not have till today. One nation, one grid. Digital connectivity to the length and breadth of the country, which has empowered our women. Homes, nearly 3 crore homes, been given to those who did not have a pakka home. In the name of the lady of the house, direct benefit transfer going to the lady of the house in times of need, pensions going into the bank account of the lady of the house. Every adult, we are trying to make sure that every adult in the country, I think by and large now, every adult, poorest of poor, has a bank account, particularly the ladies. So it's empowering our ladies that we are trying to do. Toilet, to my mind, if very often I'm asked, what is the biggest success story of, what gives you the biggest satisfaction as an individual, having served 8 years in this government? I say it's the free toilets. 12 crore toilets, dignity finally, to our mothers and sisters and daughters. It is abhorring that as a nation for so many years, we could not provide a toilet for our sisters. And nobody thought of it in the scale that Prime Minister Modi did. Free food during COVID. 80 crore people getting twice their entitlement. NFSA, they got food. Now they get another 5 kilos for 28 months up to December. 28 months at a cost of 4 lakh crore rupees. The world has woken up to a new reality. They recognize that today, Indians' daily needs are well taken care of by the government. एक जमाना था परिवार रोटी कपड़ा मकान में उलझे रहते थे. When will the next meal come from? How can I get health care for an aging parent or a sick child? How will I pay for my next meal? How will I make a good home? Will I ever be able to make a good home? Will I ever have electricity in my home? I can't dream of a cooking gas connection unless I know a member of parliament who gets 25 coupons every month or every quarter, I think it was. And I can put some influence and get a gas coupon. If you ask your parents, they'll tell you they might have also got a coupon from somebody to get a gas connection. And God forbid, they may have had to pay a bribe in the bad old days. So this is all empowerment of our sisters and daughters. And I think it is this empowerment which will enable them to contribute to the nation's progress and growth in the years to come. I'm very confident that our labor force participation of our sisters will increase at least to 50% in the next few years.
Thank you, Mr. Goyal again. And for making all those connections, I think a lot of people here probably do not get the sense of, okay, how does energy policy or policies that we are designing towards our industry and economy actually affect people at the very individual or household level. So this was extremely useful and very insightful for all of us. I'll now open up the discussion to our participants who have been waiting quite patiently. A lot of questions are coming in. So if you would allow me, I'll just read out a few questions. So one of it is by Chandramanshu Singh, who's asking specifically about PLI for solar manufacturing. Is it going to make the domestic manufacturer competitive in the long run, given the large Chinese manufacturing stronghold? And we all know that the domestic manufacturer have been provided with PLI on one side, then there is customs duty on import of Chinese solar modules. So there are things which are done to make our solar manufacturing sector more competitive. How are we going to engender structural changes to make sure that there are changes in the cost structure for firms that are involved, particularly in solar manufacturing?
Madam, this, I can assure you, it's a very holistic plan. Many companies have come forward to participate in this PLI of solar equipment manufacturing in India. And the gentleman who has asked can be rest assured that India will become the future manufacturing hub of solar equipment. Many countries, including UAE and Saudi Arabia, have in fact told me they don't want to be dependent on other geographies. They want this equipment to come from India. Many developed countries in the Western world are looking up to India to start providing high quality equipment. I would only urge through you or through your students to our manufacturers to focus on quality so that we don't let the world down. But I assure you we'll be a very competitive manufacturer.
Thank you. Thank you for that response. Taking on another question. So this has to do with your role in consumer affairs, food and public distribution. It's about food crisis and food security. The question is by Tushar Sinha, and he's asking, with increased urbanization, climate change, and lesser zeal in particular to take up agriculture as a profession, a global food shortage is being predicted. Are there anything that is being done about including alternate food sources such as edible insects, algae? Are they being researched? And India being an agrarian economy, do you see a latency in these kinds of efforts? How are we preparing for a potential future food crisis? I think that's sort of the summary of the question.
I may not be the expert to be able to respond to that, but I can only assure you that in terms of traditional foods, there's a very holistic effort, interministerial in the government, led by the Home Minister, Mr. Amit Shah himself. Agriculture, finance, food, commerce, all of us are part of that, food processing. And we are working to make sure that fertilizer, many departments, to making sure that we get adequate supplies of inputs so that we can ensure food security of India. But I must say some of the ideas that Tushar Bhai has suggested in terms of synthetic foods would be a way, or algae and all of that you just mentioned. It's thought-provoking. And I don't know, there may be other departments, maybe science and technology or biotechnology department, DST, or the Department of Agriculture, which may already be seized of these new ideas. But I would urge Tushar to write in with some suggestions if he has any. And I'll certainly like to connect any of your students who would like to pursue this idea on working on innovative foodstuffs. Incidentally, just 3 or 4 days back, I tweeted about some new type of meat, vegetarian meat that was being exported from India for the first time. I'm forgetting the exact word.
Yeah. The plant-based
India is right. So India is making certain progress, but I won't be surprised if there'll be some more new ideas or innovators coming up with new stuff. I'm happy to get more inputs from you.
Sure. Again, thank you for that. Another question is from Sanisha, who's just asking sort of an overarching question around the plan for the Gati Shakti policy, the logistics policy, which was just a few days ago, in fact. So it's just, what's the master plan is the question.
Madam, I can explain Gati Shakti, but I think it'll take a lot of time. It's a game changer like never before. I've been in business now, before I became a minister, for 50 years, or at least for whatever adult years that I had, and now 8 years in government. To my mind, there is no smarter use of technology that at least a humble me has come across than PM Gati Shakti. And it's a labor of love by the Prime Minister. He started this thinking about this concept 21 years ago when he was in Gujarat. He created BISAC, which is, by the way, in Ahmedabad. And whoever asked this question, I'd urge him to visit BISAC. BISAC, again, is that Bhaskaracharya Institute of Space Technology Applications and Geospatial Technologies. It's phenomenal. It's out of the world. So I won't have enough time just now to explain it in detail. I would urge you, don't send one boy, send a whole team to go and meet TP Singh, Director BISAG, or his other colleagues, and understand Gati Shakti. And then come to Delhi and meet me. And I'd like to then interact with them on Gati Shakti alone. I'm happy to interact with them. Alternately, if you want to send a team from IIM Ahmedabad, on the 13th of October, we celebrate 1 year of PM Gati Shakti National Master Plan. I'll have my office send in an invite. You can send a team of your professors and your students interested in logistics or in master planning of infrastructure or in technology. It will demonstrate to you how the Prime Minister's mind works and why I'm saying so boldly that to my mind, it's a phenomenal solution, which the world one day will wake up and say, wow, this is how infrastructure should be planned. So it's an open invitation to your students and to the professors.
Sure. I'm sure there'll be a lot of takers here. So what I would like to do is now just to wrap up, and thank you so much, Shri Goyal, for this extremely interactive and candid conversation that we've had around so many issues relating to economy, energy, India's place in the world today. And I'm sure our participants here would have enjoyed this interaction just as much as I did. Also, to let you know that you're welcome to come to our campus and interact with our audience in person. We would have loved to have you here for this event, but if not now, anytime that you wish to visit, we are more than happy to welcome you here. So on behalf of the Institute, on behalf of the JSW School of Public Policy and the entire student team that is organizing the Red Brick Summit, thank you, Shri Piyush Goyal, for your time today and for interacting with us. Thank you so much. And I'm sure our participants have a lot to take away from this conversation. Have a nice evening.
Thank you, madam. I'll certainly take you up on this offer.
Yes.
And one of my visits to Ahmedabad, I look forward to meeting you and your students in person.
Yes.
We can hopefully spend more time together.
Yes.
And I think while I've used video extensively over the last 2.5 years, I do believe that I would love to engage with your students to get the energy from them,
yes.
Which they are providing, I think, to the whole world.
Yes.
Given that IIM Ahmedabad students today contribute significantly across the world to economic activity. My best wishes to all your students and my compliments to IIM Ahmedabad for the wonderful work you are doing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Have a nice evening.